Hello and welcome back, all of you Focus Otters. My name is Michael Leando, and today we're going to be talking about how you can create a serverless contact form. Now, this is going to be great in case you want to have your customers send you an email, and you can have that information persisted inside of a database, just in case you were to go ahead and empty it inside of your trash bin in your email provider. We're going to be talking about GraphQL, DynamoDB, and how this all fits in the context of AWS Amplify. So without further ado, let's take a peek at the architecture and go ahead and get started. Okay, so essentially what is happening on the backend side of things is that we have a customer here. And this customer is going to be interacting with a React application. But whenever it comes time to send information to the backend, say they fill out a contact form with their name and their email, then we're going to go ahead and take that information and through the use of AWS AppSync, we can send that information off in a GraphQL manner to DynamoDB. Now, the cool thing about DynamoDB is that you can set up triggers known as DynamoDB streams. And anytime a record has an event on it, say it was added, updated, modified, or deleted, we can go ahead and trigger a function. Now, this is going to come in handy whenever we have an item added to the database. So we can say, hey, go ahead and fire off this Lambda function, which is going to have access to whatever event just got added. And we can take that information and send off an email. Now, you can see in the box here that all of this is happening in the context of Amplify. Now, we're actually going to hop out of Amplify world to integrate with a service that AWS doesn't natively support. Fortunately, we have access to the entire AWS ecosystem. So we're going to be touching base with AWS SES, Simple Email Service. And that Lambda function is going to be in charge of firing off that email. So we're going to be doing all of this in a matter of minutes. And I hope you have a lot of fun learning through this, seeing what we can do with Amplify, and even more so, extending its capabilities. So let's go ahead and hop into the code. Now, one last thing is that this video is actually based off of a blog post that I created by the same title, Serverless Contact Form, using AWS Amplify. So a lot of the code snippets can be found in here. I'll go ahead and paste the relevant bits inside of the description of this video down below. So definitely go ahead and check that out. While you're looking at the YouTube video, feel free to go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, and we can go ahead and continue on from here. Okay, so inside of this video, I'm going to provide you with all the UI bits to get us started. It doesn't have any backend code working just yet, but at least this way we don't have to worry about how do we create a contact form and how do we make it look pretty. So I'm going to clone down a repo, cd into it, check out the relevant branch, install our dependencies, and then lastly run the application. Let's go ahead and do that here. In case you're wanting to follow along, again, I linked to the blog post regarding all of the code snippets for this video in the description down below. And then in addition, you can go ahead and just check out the blog post if you look at the blog post that I have set up. All right, so we have this set up on localhost 3000. Let's want to take a look at what the application actually looks like. So here it is. It's actually fairly simple. It's a single page. And when I click on I'm interested, say this is a job posting, then I have a modal pop up. Modal currently has a name and an email. I'm going to say Michael Leando. And then the email you can find me at is, we can say mtleando@somewhere.com. If I were to hit enter here, it says, yay, it's successfully submitted. Now this actually didn't go anywhere, but let's go ahead and see how we can get this all working with Amplify. So the next step is to go ahead and take the project and open it up in VS Code. All right, so with this project opened in VS Code, I'm going to go ahead and just work in the CLI for just a little bit longer. Because a lot of this functionality, we can actually get set up without even touching any of the code inside of here. In doing so, I'm going to go ahead and run Amplify init. And this is going to use the AWS Amplify CLI to go ahead and get our project scaffolded. So for the most part, I'm going to accept a lot of the defaults here. So Amplify email recipes, feel free to change that if you'd like. And then for the project configuration, I'm going to go ahead and say no, because this is set up for Create React App, but we're actually in a Next.js project at the moment. Dev environment is fine, and we are using VS Code with JavaScript, But when it comes down to the source directory, I'm going to say dot here, and this is going to specify the root. And then for the distribution directory path, this is where I'm actually going to specify out. Now, we're not using get static props or anything like that. So with next export, it's not going to put it in that .next folder. It'll actually put it inside of an out directory instead. Build command and start command are free to accept the defaults. That's pretty much it. This is going to set up our Amplify backend, and we are free to choose a profile here. And then we can go ahead and get set up with adding services that we'd like to include inside of this backend that just got created. So we're going to go ahead and give this a moment to get everything scaffolded. It's not going to take that long. And then we can go ahead and create more services. All right, so with everything deployed and initialized, I'm going to start by adding my API. To do so, I'll type in Amplify add API. And then it'll ask me whether or not I want a REST or GraphQL API. We're using GraphQL in this example. The name is fine, and I'm actually going to use an API key. We're not going to have our users log in. Rather, we'll have a public API key that they all sort of take advantage of. Description, go ahead and set the days here. And then no advanced settings. We're going to say that we are done. Now here's where it gets really cool, because do you have an annotated schema? I don't at the moment. We're going to be creating one. It's like, great, we have a couple of templates for you to choose from. And from here, it's going to scaffold out a template for us. Do you want to edit it now? It's like, yeah, yes, we do. So let's go ahead and peel this back just a little bit and see what's going on here. Here's a schema, that GraphQL file that just got created for us. And we want to go ahead and tailor this so that way it suits the needs of what we're looking for, a candidate. So I can tweak this accordingly. It's not to-dos that we're going to be having in our application, but rather we're keeping track of candidates. So we'll have a candidate model. This app model directory says create a DynamoDB table for this. Basically hook this up so that all of the CRUD operations will be associated. And for every candidate, we'll give them an ID. They do have a name. And in addition, they have an email. And that email isn't going to be of type string. Well, it is. But AWS can actually do a little bit more for us if we specify it has to be an actual email address. It's going to just do a quick little sanity check to make sure that it is an actual email. Now, in addition to the model that got created, we do want to add in a layer of authentication. Primarily, we just want to dictate who can do what. So for that, let's go ahead and add in some auth rules here. And we do that by adding in another directive. This is going to be auth, and then the rules get specified inside of an array, and each array has a certain permission set that you apply to it. Now we said that we're using an API key, so we're going to say public here. Then the operations that we want folks to have is the ability to create. And if you ever wanted to have users read or delete or whatever, maybe you have some authorization in place and you want to give them the ability to update their contact information, simply enough, type in update. But for us, create makes the most sense. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. Now it reformatted, and that's just a quick little sanity check to make sure that I don't have any bugs or typos inside of my file here. And then we can go and continue on to the next part, because this is all we had to do to create our backend API. So with that out of the way, back in our terminal, let's go ahead and add in our function, because we've already created our API, and the API automatically is going to create the table. So now the next step is to create our Lambda function. I'm going to do so by typing in Amplify add function. And then we'll do the same process. We'll walk through the CLI and establish some set of reasonable defaults. This is going to be a Lambda function. The actual name here is perfectly fine. It's going to be Node.js, but instead of hello world or a serverless way of doing it with API gateway, it's going to be a trigger. And it's like, cool, what do you want this to be set off of? DynamoDB is where we're at. And then the next step here is, well, you want a DynamoDB table. Cool. Where is this table coming from? And the very first option gives us the ability to tie into this table that we're about to create. So I'm going to select that one. And then do you want to configure any advanced settings? No, we don't. Awesome. Next step is asking us if we want to go ahead and edit the Lambda function now. And we can absolutely take advantage of this. That opens up the file, and I'm going to hit enter to go ahead and clear this part out. So let's get that part out of the way. Let's take a peek here. This is just a basic Lambda function. However, I'm going to go ahead and bring in a couple of other items. So let's go ahead and paste this in, and then we'll walk through the code. Okay, so not too much. We're looking at 30 lines of code here, but we're going to bring in the AWS SDK. Notice that we don't have to install this because when this gets pushed up to AWS, it's automatically going to include this package. Also, off of this SDK, we're going to be tying in with SES. That's going to give us the ability to use emails and send those off to our customers. Now, as I mentioned, this Lambda function, you kind of have to visualize it here. It's going to be fired anytime an item gets added to our database. So with that said, this event is going to have all of the information related to whatever just got added. But because DynamoDB is meant to scale very high, it's going to send that information over in streams, which is why it's called the DynamoDB stream. So let's go ahead and walk through this segment of code here. Every time an item gets inserted into our database, go ahead and pull off two pieces of information. One, from this stream from DynamoDB, give me the name. Also, give me the email. This next part is equally straightforward, where we can go ahead and say, all right, we configured SES. That has a send email method on it. And from here, the destination is going to be this process.env.ses email that we have not set up yet. We'll do that in a second. Once you have the destination in place, go ahead and construct the message. Now, the header of this message, the subject, is going to be candidate submission. This is going to be whatever email comes through, what it's going to say at the top. And then as far as the body, we can use a JavaScript template literal to go ahead and interpolate the candidate's name along with their email. We're just going to have a very standard message here. Now, this is promise-based. And then at the very end of it, we're going to say we're done. And that's it. You can go ahead and again, copy this code either from the blog or from that link in the description to check things out. But it's a pretty standard way of sending just a plain text email off to a verified email address. Now, note here that I said verified email address because we have this process.env.ses email, but we need to go ahead and let Amazon know that this is something that we have verified and is okay to send from. So let's go ahead and get that started. I'm going to start things up by saving this file, and then I'm going to run Amplify console. So let's slide this over here. And this will ask us if we want to go to various parts within the AWS console, either the admin UI or the AWS console itself. Perfect. Now, once we're in the console, this is a really good spot to see what services we have inside of our application. You can see that we just went ahead and created our backend. That went ahead and got completed, but the other services haven't been pushed up yet. They're still sort of local to our machine, but we'll push those up in just a second. So at the very top, we're going to search for SES. Again, that's Amplify Simple or Amazon Simple Email Service. Hit enter here, and this is outside the scope of Amplify. Now we have a little message here just saying, hey, we're in a sandbox environment. And what we want to go ahead and do is on the main page here, we'll go ahead and create an identity. Now, I already have my email verified with AWS, but I'll show you how to do that on your end. You're going to want to come here, type in the email address that you want to use, and then select create identity. This should probably yell at me saying, hey, you already have that existing. In which case, I'm going to come here, and I'm going to click on verified identities. Now this shows me what I have verified, but if you were verified an email for the very first time, it's going to send you a message to your inbox with just a link on it as usual that you want to click on to verify that you actually own that email domain. Once you have that set up, you can return here again, on this verified identities tab. And then you want to head to an email address or the email address that you're going to use. Now I'm going to keep this page open for now because the part that I actually care about is this ARN. And this is just the unique identifier. So that way I can send emails from this domain. So with that said, I'm going to go into our code again, and we're going to update our Lambda function to be able to send emails here. All right, so back in our code, I'm going to open up our files and let's take a look at what has gotten created for us just so far. So we have this API, we have our Lambda function, and inside of here, we have this CloudFormation template. And this is really just all of the rules that got created for us whenever we were using the CLI to generate Amplify content. Well, inside of here, I can go ahead and scroll down just a little bit. And what we're looking for is the AWS execution policy, or rather the Lambda execution policy in this case. So I'm going to do a quick little Control F. I'm going to say Lambda execution policy, all one word. There it is. Great. And you can see that there's already one policy attached to it. It's just a quick little 6-liner that gives us the ability to log out the events to CloudWatch. Now we're going to add in one more, and this is the ability to talk to AWS SES. So I'll say comma, add in a new set here. You can see it reads fairly well. The action that we want our Lambda to have is the ability to use SES to send email. The effect can either be allow or deny, and we're going to allow this to happen. And then the resource is going to be that ARN that we just had over in the AWS console that we copied over. I'm going to go ahead and grab that one more time and paste that in. So with all that taken care of, we're in a pretty good spot to go ahead and push this up to the cloud. But there's one more thing that we want to go ahead and make sure that we account for. And that's going to be that environment variable, that process.env.ses email that we set up. And we can check that out one more time just by looking at the index.js. We call it ses_email, all caps. So let's go ahead and bring up the CLI one more time. And we'll say amplify. We want to update a function. Now this is going to go ahead and walk us through a series of steps. One of those is going to be, hey, do you want to go ahead and add in a, there it is, environment variable. Now this isn't a secret, right? It's just our email address. So we're just going to add it in as an environment variable. There we go. And then as mentioned, this is going to be our ses_email. And then the value is going to be mtleando and then my email address here. All right, and we're all done there. Do we want to edit it? Nope, we already have that in place. So then we're good. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and push up our resources to the cloud by running amplify push. One thing I always forget to do is making sure all of my files are saved. So let's go ahead and verify that. We're good. Awesome. Amplify push will get us there. It's going to bring up a table saying, hey, here are the resources that are created inside of your application. Are you sure that this is what you want? It should be API and the function. Notice that the database isn't there just because that is a child resource of our API. So we are sure. And the cool part is it's saying, do you want to generate code so that way your front end can interact with your back end? Yes, we do. We want that to be in JavaScript. For this example is fine. And I'm going to accept the defaults here. Now this is going to take a moment to go ahead and do its thing, but we can go ahead and get started on working on our front end, basically giving it the ability to talk to our now created backend or newly created backend. So I'm going to open up a new terminal instance. I'm going to install a package. This is going to be npm I AWS Amplify. And all this is doing is giving us the ability again for our front end to communicate with our backend here. Now over in our _app.js file, we can go ahead and configure all of the credentials that give us the ability to talk to it. So we'll say underscore app.js, and then we'll slide this over. And we can go and get started here. We're going to import Amplify. Whoops. From AWS Amplify. Next up, we can go ahead and import our config. And I'll show you where this is coming from in just a second. From, and I believe it's going to be // or //. There we go. AWS exports. And I see that that is there because outside of our pages directory, we have this AWS exports file that got created. And this is basically creating all of these secret values. So it's not going to get committed to GitHub that give us the ability to talk to our backend. So that way, just anybody can do it. Now, this is updating all those resources, but in just a moment, when this is completed, it's going to populate this with all those secret values. So with that nearing completion, I'm going to head back over into the underscore app.js file and go ahead and finish getting this configured. And the last step is just to say amplify.configure, pass it in the config. Now I went ahead and tried to break this out into the relevant components. That way you don't have to dive too deep into which files are doing what. So I do have a contact form.js file that we can take a peek into. And inside of here, I even added a small little console.log statement. So the very first thing is to go ahead and bring in the API from AWS Amplify and the ability to create those candidates. So let's go ahead and do just that. I will say import, and then this is going to be API from AWS Amplify. Then we'll also have the ability to create those candidates. So I'm going to say import, and then it's going to be called create candidate, I believe. But let's go ahead and see and make sure where this is coming from. So over in my file system, I can get rid of the terminal for now. In my files, now that the CLI is done, we can take a peek and see what's going on here. So inside of source, I have a GraphQL file that just got generated for us. And one of the queries is going to be get candidate list. And then in terms of the mutations, so adding them, we have create candidate, update, and delete. Now note that we only have the ability to create a candidate. So I have this here, and I can import this into my file. So create candidate from / source GraphQL, and then it is our mutation. This is great because it gives us the ability to easily call our API and say, hey, we're trying to create a candidate, specifically whenever a user has a name and an email for us. Now we're keeping track of this in state, right? So let's slide down to this comment, and handle contact form submit is the relevant method that's going to hook this up for us. And we can get rid of this console.log. There we go. And then we can say something like, I want to await. And then we'll say API.GraphQL, and then we'll pass in the relevant bits here. The actual string is going to be this create candidate method. And then the variables that we want to also provide to it are going to have a input with a name and an email. So basically bring those along for the ride. So we're going to try and send this. Assuming this works, then we can fire off this toast message. Otherwise, we'll get an error. I'm going to give that a quick save. And then from here, with everything pushed up to the cloud, our front end working, we should be in a pretty good spot to go ahead and try this out. Let's head back over to the application. Actually, let me get the application running. And delete that one. And then we'll say npm run dev. If I were to go ahead and fill this out and say Michael Leando, and then type in my email address here and click send, it says congratulations, successfully submitted. And any moment, I should go ahead and get an email shown up here. And there we go. My name is Michael Leando. You can reach me at, and then my email address there. All right, so we went ahead and got that taken care of. And a lot of applications that you can go ahead and pick off the shelf, you can typically spend between $9.99 a month or some other variable amount of money. But hopefully this was a use case that proves, hey, you can get this set up in a matter of minutes if you were to know the right tools, have the right guidance, and of course, have an extremely powerful backend system that allows us to get this set up fairly quickly. Once again, my name is Michael Leando. And if you did like this video, feel free to go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share it, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.